Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here. As Daniel Lankilde said in the opening presentations, we've been talking about this conference for so long. It's been a huge interest for the meetup groups, and then me moving away from Sweden, not staying connected to the community, and then all of a sudden a conference appears. Super exciting to be here. So in the conference name, you've seen that it says both machine learning and data science. And the meetup group is also called Machine Learning and Data Science. Very often when you go to conferences or listen to presentation, you will hear about the cool models, the cool predictive analytics, and you will hear about neural networks, deep learning, and similar things. I think that is captured in the machine learning partly, but there's so much more to data science. So to me, data science is the art of working with data to get business insights. And today I'm here to talk about the story about experimentation culture. But before that, I already got the introduction about me. My name is Oscar Carlsson. I'm currently working as a data scientist at Booking.com in Amsterdam. Prior to that, I was at Spotify here in Gothenburg and Chalmers. And this slide was supposed to be my entry to what am I doing at a conference in Gothenburg, but I already got that. Cool. So this story about experimentation culture and using data, it's different depending on which business and company you work at. So to get a sense for, so I've already talked about me now, so now I want to know something about you. So could everybody that is in academia here raise their hand? So students, PhD researchers, similar. Okay, so we have some researchers. Then could we get hands up for people who work in large companies, say 1,000+ employees, something? We have some, and then people who work in smaller companies, like up to 100. Super interesting. And then could everybody that have heard about A/B testing before raise their hand? Cool, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. And then everybody that has ever run an experiment, keep your hand up. So you've ever run a A/B test? And then keep your hand up if A/B testing is part of your day-to-day work. Cool. I think this is super relevant to the story I'm about to tell. So I'm from Booking.com. We're the world's largest accommodation service. So we match customers with property owners worldwide. When people want to go on holiday, when they want to go to work trips, etc. And experimentation and A/B testing is part of our day-to-day work in how we do product development. To do experimentation, we need data, and I do think it's fair to say that we have the largest travel data set in the world. So Booking.com, in numbers, means more than 1.5 million room nights reserved per day through the platform. More than 1.7 million properties are signed up to Booking.com. And this is a two-sided marketplace, right? So Booking.com is an e-commerce. We sell stuff on a web page, and it's two-sided. So we don't own any hotels, but we provide them to others. So we have two kind of customers here. We have the partners, and we have the person who wants to book. And then in terms of how big we are as a company, we have more than 17,000 employees. Not all of them working in tech with product development, but more than 1,500 of them are in product, and most of them in Amsterdam with me. So I already dropped the name A/B testing. So A/B testing is something that has become popular among the internet companies in recent days. And it's often connected to something that is called feature toggling. And feature toggling, the idea behind it is that you want, from the back end, from the company, to be able to regulate who and how many sees what change. And then on top of this feature toggling, you can do experiments. You can run experiments by only showing the change you want to some percentage of the users. And this idea is nothing new to internet companies. So this is called random control trials or random control experiments, which is a super old fundamental scientific methods. But what the internet companies have done is that we've taken this to a new scale, where we were running it on a lot more users, and there are a lot more people who are conducting these experiments. So what does this A/B testing mean? It's also called split testing. Oh, sorry. Whoa, wrong way. How do I go back?
On the backwards button.
Nice. Yes. So in these experiments, what you do is that you change something. You have something that you want to change with your product or with your service. And before you make this change, so this is more on the theoretical part of A/B testing. Before this, you make a prediction on what will happen when you do this change. So core to an A/B test and an experiment is a hypothesis. So hypothesis captures the prediction on what you believe is going to happen when you make this change. And what you want back is that you want to either prove or disprove this hypothesis. So imagine any change you would do in your company that involves your customers. Most oftenly, it's, or in a lot of companies, you use common sense and you use gut feeling when you decide which is better. In this way, you measure it and you capture the change in a hypothesis. So at Booking.com, we've developed this hypothesis framework that is divided into 3 different steps. So it's theory, validation, and objective. So in the first part, colored blue here, you have the theory, which is the underlying assumptions. Why are you making this change? And then you have the validation that says, we know that our prediction is correct when this metric is moving in the direction that we believed in the beginning. And then lastly, we also added the objective to argument and say why this is good for business. Because it's super easy to optimize for conversion or something, but it might be super short focus and not a long focus, and that would be encaptured in the motivation. So this hypothesis, very importantly, you define it before you run the experiment. So this is, for the researcher in here, this is very similar to the pre-registration problem that is happening in all over science, where people run experiments, they do not tell what the hypothesis was before, and then when they have the results, they make up whatever hypothesis that fits the data. So important, hypothesis before. And then you do the randomization. So you split your customers or whatever you're making this change towards into 2 groups. One group that gets the control behavior, which is what you had before, and then one group that gets the new behavior that you've changed. So in here you need to decide on how many people to expose. Different companies do it differently. At Booking, we always do 50-50 splits on the tests, because that will give us the most exposure, which means that we'll get a lot of data on the new thing as soon as possible, so we can take the decision. But you can also do 199 or something. And then when this experiment is run for X amount of time, which you can calculate beforehand. So this is not, it's not very advanced statistics that you use in A/B testing, and it's called power calculation, what you do. So you calculate how long time you need to run the test, and then you measure your metric, and you make a hypothesis test, or at Booking we use frequency statistics for this. There's also a Bayesian approach to do this. But you compare the 2 metrics that you've got, and you weigh in how many samples you've got during this time, and you can see if the difference is large enough, if it's statistically significant or if it's just variance. So that is the fundamentals of A/B testing. You split the group into two, you let it run for a while, and then you get back the metrics. And then you know which one performs better instead of just guessing. So why is this such a big thing? Because there are a lot of hippos in the world. A hippo is a highest paid person's opinion. So that means that the boss says that I want this change. This change is the best. But with A/B testing, you get numbers on which one is best. And with the experiment culture, if you integrate it deeply, you always let the A/B test decide which one is better. You remove the opinions from the decision. And if you do it well enough, you also get really rapid decision making. You don't need plenty of meetings to decide if A or B is the thing to do, because you have the data on it. So this A/B testing is also often talked about when people talk about data-driven product development, and everybody is supposed to be data-driven. I think it's slightly confusing and sometimes misleading to only talk about data-driven. I like to phrase it as it's evidence-based product development. It's kind of the same, but the emphasis here is that we have evidence that something is better or worse. So 2005, long before I joined Booking, it's an important milestone at Booking. That's when Booking ran their first A/B test. And since 2005, Booking has invested heavily into an internal experimentation tool. So we built our own A/B testing platform internally at Booking, and we have researched and worked a lot on improving how we do A/B testing. Today, every day, we run and analyze over 1,000 tests throughout the organization. Which means that if 2 people in here go to booking.com, you will definitely find a lot of differences on the landing page. So there are tests running everywhere at booking.com all the time. And what I'm trying to say with this is this culture that we have really enhanced us to test a lot of things and throughout the organization. So what was the core principles when we started in 2005? Well, they decided that we should focus on democracy and decentralization. So decentralization in the way that you don't want a single decision maker for every A/B test. You can't have a bottleneck and say that the data scientists are the ones responsible for A/B testing. Every product team needs to go to talk to them. That doesn't scale. It's a very quick bottleneck. So the principle was to do it decentralized, to build an open platform where everybody can integrate their own metric. So every business unit can add the metrics that they are interested in. Everybody can go through the previous experiments to learn about what has worked, what has not worked, to inform new hypotheses. And everybody, without being dependent on the team of data science or who would be responsible, can make data-driven decisions or evidence-based product development. So maybe it sounds easy. You just build a platform that is decentralized. You show some numbers, and then you're done. But not really. You really need adoption to get the rate of tests up. So what did we do? First of all, we focused on making it cheap to run experiments. So in the beginning, 2005, it was not cheap. I mean, it must have been a huge project to get the first experiment running, and that is understandable. But they put a lot of effort into making it very, very quick to add a new experiment. So you can't really blame and say that, oh no, we're just going to push this out. It takes too long to wrap it in an experiment. So cheap. And it also needs to be safe. Because what you're doing with A/B testing is that you're releasing stuff to live production data, or I mean, you push it to production, basically. So you expose users for something new you've created. And obviously, there are bugs in code, and sometimes we do run tests that tank conversion, so conversion just goes straight down, and then it needs to be safe for these people to roll it back or to change it if you want adoption. And then it also needs to be easy. I already touched a bit upon this. You can't rely on some specific knowledge if you want everybody in your organization to be doing it. So it needs to be super easy to just wrap the feature. And then lastly, when you run your experiment, it needs to be reliable. So I've seen this before, and if you report the wrong numbers in A/B test, all trust is lost, and then people go back to the opinion-based. So if you can't guarantee that the tracking of the users and the data gathering and the statistics that you're doing is correct, then you've lost trust. So we focused on these, and I can safely say that anyone at Booking right now can test new ideas. So we have this amazing experimentation tool. We also have something for copywriters. So they, independently from the product teams, can change words in the web page. So independently, they can run their own experiments, get back the results, and know if it was positive or negative. And with all the, I mean, so reliability has been an issue at Booking as well. But we really worked on it, and now everybody trusts the platform. So having managed to integrate experimentation so deeply, we managed to spread this all over the organization. And now we're at a rate where we test absolutely everything. That might be one of the reasons why it's 1,000, because we test everything. So we test on all the platforms we have. So you saw in the pictures earlier that I had mobile, tablet, I had a desktop. We also experiment on the customer service phone lines. We test on tools on the other side of the two-sided marketplace towards the partners. So we give partners products and systems to integrate with Booking, and we run experiments on them as well. And we even run experiments on the internal systems on our employees. So every change that is happening at Booking is wrapped in an experiment. And it's not only the classical, you are changing a button or you're changing a text. It's also bug fixes, and it's backend changes. And what we get is that we get number for everything that we change. And we're building this huge repository where we can do all this meta-analysis on our tests. So in the toy example that I showed earlier, I didn't really go into it, but it said that one of them was a winner. It had 15% in whatever metric we were measuring. The other one had 10. That isn't the common case. So 9 out of 10 tests fail. And this is something that we can back up at Booking, but it's really just I stole an industry common number. So 9 out of 10 A/B tests that you run are inconclusive or show no difference. So here we are pushing for this framework onto designers and product owners and everything. And then they start running all these experiments, but metrics never change. So there are obviously a lot of ways you can improve on this 9 out of 10. So I mean, testing ideas that you previously have had success with. If you do user research before and you identify pain points and you focus on them, of course they will have more than 9 out of 10. But what you really need to do is that you need to prepare to be wrong. Because most oftenly, you have a hunch and you have an idea on what will work, but with the A/B testing, you might be proven wrong. So with this decentralized experimentation culture, we've given the power to our employees to run their own experiments. But everybody's not a scientist. I mean, back in the days when these statistical methods were released, it was just a few statisticians who knew how this works. And there are a lot of best practices, and there are a lot of gotchas in, I mean, not everybody knows statistics. But what we've done is that we've made everybody a scientist. So you have this common problem in A/B testing, or common dilemma, which is called the peaking problem, that you look at the experiment results too early. It's, if you're given a platform where you see the numbers, why wouldn't you be allowed to peak? And I was talking about this pre-registration thing. Why can't I just make the hypothesis in the end when I have the results or whatever? So how do we tackle this? Well, we tackle it through education and protocol. And with protocol, I mean that in the tool, we try to motivate and empower users of the platform to do these things in the best practice way. So we ask for the runtime of the experiment. We've given a power calculator to the employees. We're running education on how A/B testing works. And then when we have this central tool, we can follow up later on to see if they need more education. Or why didn't you add this hypothesis before the test? Why did you put this test full on 1 week after runtime? To identify where people accidentally are doing p-hacking or other things. So now I've been talking about how great this is, and how everybody has been empowered to do it. So there's a senior product owner for the experiment tool. He ran a survey in Booking. He sent a survey to all the employees asking how does experimentation change your day-to-day life? Because it's very easy for me to stand here and say, oh, it's so great, everybody's doing it. So I want to try to back it up with some real stories from employees at Booking. So I got three beautiful colleagues of mine here. So Clyde is one example that said that data-driven is very common, but being empowering everybody to make data-driven decisions is independently unique in Booking.com. Or Nokia here, who really emphasizes this rapid decision-making from idea to result quickly. Or Diogo, who's really taken to him the prepare to be wrong statement, where he now uses this to challenge his assumptions. So if you found this story and this field interesting, there's a white paper by some smart people at Booking who talk more about this. It's called Democratizing Online Controlled Experiments at Booking. If you think it sounds fun to work with the biggest travel data set in the world, we have plenty of data scientist positions and machine learning positions. I think we have a community of more than 200 data scientists in Amsterdam, and we're welcome to have more. Please connect with me if you have any more questions, or grab me in the break, or we might have questions. Time for questions now. Thank you.